Name something that gets passed around.
A joint.
A joint?
Legalized marijuana is always a very difficult question.
The time is long overdue for us to remove the federal prohibition on marijuana.
From now on, I smoke weed exclusively with white people.
Well, I'll get higher next time.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man, the Snoopy Poop Dog.
There's definitely cannabis in there, and it makes sure that I can sleep now.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel?
Don't piss off your old dealer.
Marijuana is not the kind of thing that ought to be legalized.
I know you're not supposed to admit that you smoke pot, but I don't drink alcohol.
Let's get out of here. I have some really good weed back at the hotel.
I used to smoke marijuana.
I don't care if an adult wants to smoke marijuana. They shouldn't go to prison for it either.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Time for Toker Talk Radio. I'm Radical Russ, hanging out here at Delta 9 House and Studios, the newly popular Airbnb here in Portland. So we had guests here on Saturday night. Great, lovely couple from New Mexico. And we've got guests tonight and tomorrow and Wednesday. A couple of guys from Stanford University came up. So they brought goodies. Good for them. Bringing the host goodies always makes me feel good. Although they're, I can't have any of the goodies and do the show. So that's a problem. But it's been great. I'm really enjoying doing this. This is a great way to help offset the bills and keep this studio afloat. So thank you so much for letting people know about it. You can go to facebook.com/Delta9House and learn more. I promised an update on this Tennessee bill. We talked about it on the news where Memphis, Tennessee and Nashville, Tennessee both passed local decrim measures. They both passed, and it wasn't a whole lot either, right? It was like a half ounce, I think, or 10 grams or 15 grams, something. It's like a low amount, right? But basically said if the city cops caught you in Nashville or Memphis, they had the discretion to cite you under the city ordinance. They didn't have to. They could still cite you under the state law, and most did. But they had the discretion. They used it a few times. They had the discretion to just cite you under this local decrim measure that's just a fine, confiscate the weed, slap on the wrist, pay your fine, everything's cool. So Nashville and Memphis did this, but the rest of Tennessee, or at least the Tennessee Senate, doesn't see it that way. So the legislature in Nashville has passed a bill that would bar cities from decriminalizing marijuana. Basically invalidate the will of the people in these two major cities because, you know, Tennessee is like every other state in the respect that you've got cities that tend to have universities and corporations and tend to be more liberal. And then you got the country. And then you got out there, out in the rural areas where people are good, God-fearing Christians that go to church and believe in mom, apple pie, and Chevrolet. Or Ford or Dodge, depends on who you ask. But, but anyway, and they don't like the city folk going and decriminalizing the Mary Jane. So there was a big argument about this in the Tennessee legislature, but to no avail because the bill has gone to the governor's desk. And if he signs it, it recriminalizes marijuana in Nashville and Memphis. So one of the Democrats from Memphis, a guy is named Lee Harris, one of the senators, said, quote, Mr. Speaker, members of the Senate, if we prevent cities from taking action in this area, we can rest assured that there will be more Tennesseans that are in prison on terms that are out of proportion with their crime. He also pointed out how more people would find it harder to find employment if they get a marijuana possession charge. A Democrat from Nashville said, quote, it's an invasion of local control, end quote, and worried that the measure would take discretion out of police hands. But the Republicans, led by Senator Ken Yeager, a Republican from Oak Ridge, said the laws need to be uniformly enforced across the state. Marijuana abuse is a very serious issue in this state, Yeager said. A Democrat from Memphis worried about the slippery slope of telling other lawmakers and other cities what to do, but Jack Johnson, a Republican, retorted, Let me tell you what a slippery slope is. It's when we start allowing municipalities to decide what state laws they want to enforce and what state laws they do not want to enforce. End quote. Yeah, and I'll bet every one of these Republicans that are all up in arms about the cities decriminalizing marijuana are the same kind of guys with a straight face who will start talking about states' rights. He starts saying, well, the federal government making us take Obamacare. Oh, the federal government, the federal government, states' rights. So they're all for the local control as long as it's the level they locally control. But any more local than that, no. They're going to pull the reins back on that. We can't have city folk legalizing the wacky tobacco. Not even legalizing, decriminalizing. My God. But that's the way this battle is fought, folks. It's these fits and starts and baby steps, and one step forward with a decrim, 2 steps back with a state law banning decrim. Marijuana is just the exception to all conservative principles, isn't it? Limited government, states' rights, individual responsibility, keep government small, and wasteful government programs. Unless you want to go bug people that are growing weed, then, by God, spend all the money you want, run roughshod over their liberties, set a draconian federal standard that all locals must obey. They're all cool with that.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
In the interest of fair and balanced journalism, the Russ Belville Show presents the anti-drug public service announcement of the day.
These ingredients used to make crystal meth cost about $30. But the real cost is much greater. If you see suspiciously used items like these in your neighborhood, call 574-LMPD.
This has been the Russ Belville Show's anti-drug public service announcement of the day, exclusively on RadicalRuss.com.
New beginner guitars and banjos are often constructed much better than ones built before your time. Why struggle? Get a new instrument or fix the old one. The trusted professionals at the Fingerboard Extension will evaluate your instrument for free. Repairs are priced for people who work for a living. Stop by the Fingerboard Extension downtown Corvallis at 120 Northwest 2nd Street today, or check out its inventory on the web at fingerboardextension.com.
Marijuana is not addictive, but listening to the Russ Belville Show is. Warning. Hits taken on this show are larger than they appear. Do not try this at home. These people are professionals. Or at least they aim you to say that.
Yes, I cannabis.
A public service message from the Russ Belville Show.
Stupid Prohibition Stories.
As a public service, the Russ Belville Show reminds you that smoking marijuana does not make one stupid. However, some stupid people do smoke marijuana, and prohibition is always waiting for another victim. Learn your lesson from today's Stupid Prohibition Stories.
With your Stupid Prohibition Stories, I'm old-timey 1920s radio reporter Freddie Farrock. This just in from MassLive.com. School bus driver arrested for driving under the influence of marijuana before taking students on a field trip. Police in Chelmsford, Massachusetts arrested a school bus driver Tuesday morning after high school students getting on the bus complained about a strange odor on board. The smell, according to police, turned out to be marijuana. The bus driver, 63-year-old Ali Mahfouz of Nashua, New Hampshire, was arrested on charges of driving under the influence of marijuana marijuana, driving negligently as to endanger and reckless endangerment, according to a news release. School administrators called Chelmsford Police Tuesday's morning after several high school students told a teacher that there was a strange odor on a bus they had boarded in order to go to a field trip, police said. Police said, quote, the teacher immediately notified the principal, who boarded the bus with the other administrators and could clearly smell the odor of marijuana. The students were taken off the bus and brought to the cafeteria, end quote. Officers arrived and detained Mahfouz and determined Mahfouz was under the influence of marijuana. I'm Freddie Farrak with your stupid Prohibition Stories. Oh, damn it. Oh, this is not the story we want, people. This is just awful. The mantra for years from Kevin Sabet and prohibitionists everywhere has been, well, I don't care if an adult wants to smoke pot. If they just want to sit in their basement and smoke pot, I don't care, but I don't want them driving my kids in the school bus. This is the kind of nightmare story that could take off, folks. And we're just lucky at this point that they caught him before he was driving the bus, not after. That he wasn't involved in some sort of flaming wreck that killed a bunch of kids. I'm not saying that's likely. We all know smoking weed and driving is no big deal. But when we're talking about kids, high school kids in a bus, it's a big deal. From a public relations perspective, the stupidity here is just gargantuan in how much it will set us back. I don't know how far this story is going in Massachusetts. I've read a couple of reports on it from Mass Live so far. You know Kevin Sabet and Project Sam are going to run with this. And it's just the kind of story that can be the flashpoint of a moral panic. I keep warning folks that the war on drugs, the war on marijuana, has very little to do with fact, science, reason, and logic, and a whole lot to do with moral panic, crusading, puritanism, racism, a lot of factors that don't behave rationally, that don't cause the actors to behave in a rational manner. So when we can say that, yeah, the marijuana industry is so big and it makes so much money and it's so popular in the Gallup polls and it brings in tax revenue and yada, 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 that's all logical and reasonable and well thought out. But a mom worried about her kid getting on a school bus with a driver who might be smoking pot doesn't respond to reason. She doesn't care how many jobs you've put out, how much money somebody's making. To her, it sounds like blood money. To her, it sounds like, oh, okay, so you're fine with the school bus driver smoking pot as long as you get rich. And I just, there's going to be, and there's just, it's inevitable that there's going to be these kind of stories. There can't not be. There's all sorts of people that do all sorts of things and nobody's perfect. And as these stories come out, they're going to be seized on because now we've got we've got an administration that wants these kind of bad news stories to get attention. And we've got an energized opposition is going to make the most of this. They're already out in force trying to crack down in so many ways, trying to impede the further progress of legalization and to restrict the legalization that exists in the current states. They want to take away our home grow rights. They want to restrict advertising to the point where it's just doesn't exist. I recently just today got in a Twitter beef with our own PDX Randy Lee. Used to be the Project Sam guy for Oregon until he compared the Pulse nightclub shooting to legalization as far as being awful. So yeah, that got him booted. This guy, he shows up on my Twitter account all the time, and I had posted yesterday a picture on my walk home from the Rite Aid where I was at the corner of 122nd, Southeast 122nd and Division in Portland. Major intersection, two major roads, 5 laners, turn lanes and all. And at that corner, there is an electronic billboard. There's one of those, colorful changing billboards. And it had a billboard ad up for Americana, which is one of our cannabis companies, one of our retailers. And it mentioned that 420 is coming soon. And it mentioned wholesale shatter pricing. And Randy is all upset about this. I filmed it and I posted the video online, and it got a lot of great response from people. But not those folks. They think it's awful. They say it violates the standards for advertising because kids might see it. Oh no, what about the children? The kids might see it. Now, the law that we have in Oregon says that the advertising is restricted, and that when you're advertising in any medium, you have to reasonably believe that the audience for that medium is at least 70% adult. 70% over the age of 21. So you can't obviously advertise during Nickelodeon's cartoon block or something, right? Far too many kids are watching during that time. But late at night, you can show the audience that late night is predominantly adult. Same goes for like magazine advertising and newspaper advertising. If you can show that your audience is predominantly adult, you can advertise there. So how does that work for a billboard? Well, I would figure the people driving through Southeast 122nd Division would probably be a pretty representative random sample of people generally in Oregon. I would think, got to shave off some of folks that don't have cars, but then you'd have to add folks that walk and take the bus and drive and take bikes through that intersection all the time. You'd have to worry about all the school buses that might go through that intersection, but then you also would have to worry about the senior citizen buses going through that intersection. So I think it would all balance out, probably. Close enough. So I checked the census. This is all in our Twitter battle, by the way. So I checked the U.S. Census. And in Oregon, 21.4% of the citizens in the 2015 estimate are age 18 and younger. 21.4. So I posted that. I posted a response to Randy. And, I said, look, a random sample of people going through Southeast 122nd Division is going to be a random sample of Oregonians, and they are 79% adult, 78.6% over 18. And so he retorts that, the law is over 21. It's like, you dropped on your head as a kid or something? I mean, I smoke pot every day, and I can do the math. What's your issue, right? Because if 21% of the population is 18 and younger, he's trying to say that another 9% is age 19 and 20? Another 9% are age 19 and 20. Work the math on that, pal. Let's see. If two age groups are 9%, then one age, like age 19, would be 4.5%, right? So then how would you get only 20% of the people that there's this big demographic bubble of people that are 18 and 19? I don't think so. Clearly, less than 30%, fewer than 30% of the people that are going through that intersection are under the age of 21. What upsets him about it is that the ad exists. That anybody can see the ad. He's not worried about the children. None of these people are worried about the children. The extent to which they're worried about the children is that if their children say something about it, they'd have to mention it. They'd have to talk about it. They don't want to be responsible parents and have to talk. They just want things to be illegal so that they have easy excuses. Don't do it. Why? Because you'll go to jail. Oh, okay. And that just shuts down all discussion of whether or not they did it as a kid, whether or not there's a legal or whether or not there's a reasonable, safe tolerance level for adult use, whatever. If it's illegal, they can just say it's bad and then the conversation's over. Why do we have this hang up about advertising legal weed for adults? I don't have kids. But I don't understand these people who think kids ought to be raised in such a way that they have no exposure whatsoever to the world out there, to what's going on, to things that adults do. Why is that a problem? Why is that scary to them? Yes, adults have sex. Yes, adults take drugs. Yes, these things happen. Adults gamble. I have always thought that trying to hide those things from kids just makes them want to do it more.
Where'd you learn that, Cheech? Drug school.
All right, that sound means that it is 4:20 here in the Pacific Time Zone. Time for us to take our union-mandated safety briefing. I'm feeling safe. I hope you are too. We're back here from Delta 9 House and Studios with a deeper look on the FDA's approval of Insys's new synthetic THC.
The Russ Belville Show is proudly sponsored by the Marijuana Business Association. The MJBA, called by NBC News the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, is the fastest growing business association in the fastest growing industry in America. I've been working with the MJBA for years, and I personally invite you to join the MJBA. MJBA also publishes the popular MJ Headline News on Facebook and the MJNewsNetwork.com and Marijuana Channel 1 on YouTube. Visit MJBA.net for more details.
You're listening to the Russ Belville Show.
In my view, the time is long overdue for us to remove the federal prohibition on marijuana.
You can find Radical Russ online everywhere. Warning. Hits taken on this show are larger than they appear. Do not try this at home. These people are professionals. Or at least they pay me to say that.
Cool.
A public service message from the Russ Belville Show. Warning, hits taken on this show are larger than they appear. Do not try this at home. These people are professionals. Or at least they pay me to say that. This is Dan Michaels from danmichaelsaudio.com, and you're listening to Radical Russ on CannabisRadio.com.
Well, it looks like other outlets are picking up on the Insys Therapeutics hypocrisy story. Attention just came out with one, ATTN. Their story is the DEA's approval of this drug highlights its own hypocrisy. It, of course, is discussing Syndrose, which is a new oral solution with synthetic THC created by Insys Therapeutics. That's the Arizona pharmaceutical company that donated $500,000 to oppose marijuana legalization. So it kind of got a reward there, looks like. Doesn't it? Do you think maybe that other pharmaceutical companies are looking at that 2016 election and looking at the drugs they've got in the pipeline and thinking, well, maybe if we kick in to oppose the 2018 elections for marijuana, maybe, just maybe, we get some favorable actions from the DEA when our next drug trials, next drug schedules come up. So it's fascinating because when you're discussing the difference between Schedule 1 and Schedule 2, there's only one critical difference. Schedule 1 has no medicinal value. That's it. That's the difference between Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 drugs. Schedule 1 has no medicinal value. I mean, according to the law. Obviously, a lot of these Schedule 1 drugs have tons of medicinal value. But as far as their potential for abuse and their risk and their safety profiles and all of that, how addictive they are, etc., there's no difference between a Schedule 1 and a Schedule 2. Cocaine and methamphetamine are Schedule 2 drugs. But we all think of them as the illegal drugs, right, that DEA goes after alongside marijuana and heroin, right? Cocaine and meth and marijuana and heroin. The four horsemen of the apocalypse, right? But yet cocaine and methamphetamine have been determined by the government to have medicinal properties. So this is where the Syndrose enters, right? Because the Syndrose situation is one where they have they have prepared this synthetic THC in an oral solution, and the DEA notes that, quote, Syndrose is similar to that of other THC-containing products such as concentrates, infused edibles, and drinks, and can be easily manipulated to other forms that can be easily abused through inhalation and oral routes of administration. So Syndrose is like an edible. Syndrose is like concentrate because you can inhale it or have other oral routes to use it. In fact, it actually says both these formulations have abuse potential as demonstrated by their effects on subjective scores of drug liking in human abuse potential studies. Health and Human Services indicated that the formulation of Syndrose oral solution is easier to abuse than Marinol because this liquid formulation can be manipulated to produce concentrated extracts of dronabinol for abuse by inhalation, smoking, or vaping, or through other routes of administration. Because of the large amount of dronabinol in Syndrose oral solution, it has a greater potential for extraction than Marinol and thus has a greater abuse potential. Based on the data from in vitro studies conducted by the sponsor, the large amount of dronabinol in the Syndrose formulation, its pharmacokinetics upon oral administration, and its contribution to marijuana psychoactivity, Health and Human Services stated that the abuse potential of dronabinol oral solution is similar to that of other THC-containing products such as concentrates, infused edibles, and drinks. Similar to these THC-containing products, Syndrose oral solution can be easily manipulated to other forms that can be easily abused through inhalation and oral routes of administration. So, Tom Angel notes, am I reading this new scheduling ruling on THC oral solution wrong? Or did DEA basically just admit marijuana should also be Schedule 2? That's the point. Everything they're saying about Syndrose to justify why it has to be higher than Schedule 3 Marinol is exactly the same reason you should justify marijuana, the natural plant form, to be at least Schedule 2. This dronabinol solution can be abused the same way marijuana can, the same way concentrates can, the same way edibles can, but marijuana, concentrates, and edibles are all Schedule 1? Follow the bouncing ball of logic on that one, folks. All right, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the state of Alabama cracking down on weed when we return.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Hey everybody, it's Radical Russ here from 420 Radio, inviting you to be like me and get your ink done at Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo, Fort Worth's most female-friendly, clean, sterile, awesome tattoo shop. Thomas and his crew are true artists who can design you a custom piece or use a design you bring in. Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo also offers all styles of tattooing as well as piercings and all-around fun. In the DFW area, stop by Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Trust me, it'll feel awesome.
You're listening to the Russ Belville Show.
I think that as far as drug legalization, we talk about marijuana, and in terms of medical, I think I am basically for that.
You can find Radical Russ online everywhere. Warning. Hits taken on this show are larger than they appear. Do not try this at home. These people are professionals. Or at least they pay me to say that.
Is this right? Just try not to drool quite so much on the end of it.
A public service message from the Russ Belville Show. Most of us pirates, we go on vacation to North Dakota, you know, because they've got a town called Argusville. What are you smoking there, boy? This is Dan Michaels from DanMichaelsAudio.com. And you're listening to Radical Russ on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everybody. just about half past, coming up here in beautiful legal Potland, Oregon. And looking forward to next week. We got all sorts of great announcements about the future of the Russ Belville Show coming up for you. Following up on some of the other stories that I've covered as well here before we move on. And a quick thing about the censorship. We talked about that in the Radical Rant. It's also available online at hightimes.com right now. And it's, the Google AdWords thing is one thing. And the Facebook thing and Instagram banning people's pages and such. But there's another way. There's all these little insidious ways in which our marijuana prohibition is subtly and sometimes secretly manipulated and enforced and given the benefit of the doubt, basically as the default social policy and the way we ought to think. And so this was prompted by one of our chat room regulars, John Thomas, who had put forth, I think it was on Facebook somewhere, something about typing marijuana in for Google searches and what happens. And so now this can vary depending on if you're signed into Google, right? Because if you're signed into Google and you do a search, it's also searching your emails and your personal search habits and such. And so you might have different results. So to really get the hang of this, log out of Google or use one of those incognito windows in like Chrome, that doesn't have any cookies or tracking, and go to google.com, the main site. And you know how when you type stuff in, it starts to suggest stuff? It starts to, base off of what you're typing, it'll start to fill in some suggestions, some things that you might be looking for. And this is helpful because maybe you're not the best speller in the world. And so when it's filling things in, you want to look for rhinoceroses and you type in RHINO and you're like a little shady beyond that part. Well, it won't matter because it's going to come up. CEROUS, by the way. So this is a helpful feature for people when they're trying to learn stuff. So an interesting little experiment I did this morning is I started typing in different drugs to see what would happen. So I started with alcohol. Nothing. Well, I mean, there was a bunch of stuff that came up for 5 or 6 things, but not alcohol, right? L, C, boom. As soon as I got to C, alcohol appeared, top line. First thing I could choose. Okay. Erase that, and I tried another one. T, O, B, boom, tobacco comes up. It wasn't the first line, it was like the third line, but it still came up in the search results along with Toby Keith. All right, let's try another one. O, X, boom, oxycodone, right there in the list. 2 letters. All right, let's try another one. Fentanyl, F, E, N, boom, fentanyl shows up in the list. So when it came to powerful opioid painkillers, alcohol, and tobacco, deadly dangerous products that kill people all the time, they all came up within 3 letters of a search. It only took me the first 3 letters for Google to send me on my way to learn about those drugs. Now, guess what happens when you try marijuana? M, A, R, I, J, and when you get to J, something weird happens. The results disappear. There are no results. Now, I'm not a perfect dictionary, but I can't recall any other words that start with M-A-R-I-J. I think marijuana is the only one. But no search results come up in Google in your autocomplete when you're typing in a search, when you type in M-A-R-I-J. So you think, all right, well, marijuana is a slang term, right? What about the scientific term? Cannabis. C-A-N-N-A. Now, when you get to the A there, canna, you'll start to see some results come up. Things like Cannabliss and Cannabist, the website from the Denver Post, right? but you'll type all the way through to the final S on cannabis before you get cannabis. You'll even get cannabinoid, but you won't get cannabis. Now, I tried other drugs too. I tried heroin, cocaine, similar searches, similar results. Right? No results for cocaine, no results for heroin. You can try this yourself. Google.com. Make sure you're not logged in. But here we go. Cocaine, C-O-C. Coconut oil, Coca-Bolo Des, Coca-Cola, Cocoa Donuts, C-O-C-A. Coca-Cola, 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 C-O-C-A-I. Nothing. You get that fifth letter. When it would be cocaine, nothing. Heroin, when you type heroin in, it'll actually bring up heroin, like Wonder Woman, like Susan B. Anthony, like Joan of Arc heroin, right? But not heroin, the drug. Meth, M-E-T-H. Methadone, methotrexate, methylphenidate, Method Man. A, methadone, methanol, methane, methadone clinic. M. As soon as I get to the M, where it would be methamphetamine, it thinks I'm misspelling methy, M-I-T-H-I-M-A-Z-O-L-E, methimazole, methamp. Let's put the P there, M-E-T-H-A-M-P, nothing. We're out. So Google is doing something similar to what Twitter just stopped doing, and that is deciding that these terms about drugs, including marijuana and cannabis, should not show up in default search results, that they are some sort of offensive content that must be shielded from people's eyes. I mean, not all of this stuff is offensive to Google, right? You can type in M-U-R-D-E-R and get murders. You can type in rape, find up all information you want about rape statistics, rape victims, rape crisis centers. So what is the Google policy on this autofill? See, it's not that I'm sitting here thinking that, we ought to be promoting anything. I'm thinking people that are interested in legitimate research on a subject are being blocked at some small level from finding what they want to look for. Somebody is wanting to find information about marijuana laws or marijuana history. I know it's not much of a thing, right? You type out the whole word marijuana, you're going to find what you're looking for. And young people these days aren't going to have any issue with it. They're going to get right around it. It's just one of those little subtle ways that we're discriminated against. One of those ways in which our people, our lifestyle, our beliefs should be hidden, should be kept from the public, should be hidden from the people's eyes, from especially the children's eyes. The older I get, the tireder I get of it. I get more tired of it year after year after year. And it would be one thing if I were living in a society that eschewed the use of drugs. If we really were a drug-free society, then I wouldn't have too much to complain about. But the problem that bothers me so much in this issue is that we are so clearly not a drug-free society. We so clearly support and promote and celebrate alcohol. Alcohol is so much a part of our culture that it's a part of making a deal or starting a romance or celebrating a victory. There are people in this world who don't know how to socialize with other human beings unless there's the consumption of that drug involved. I wouldn't have such a problem if we weren't a society that tolerates tobacco use. And I'll admit that it's changed a whole lot for the worse for tobacco smokers. And I think some of it's gone too far. But we tolerate them. We don't test to see whether they have nicotine in their system before we hire them, at least not to the huge extent we do for marijuana. We have places, they're legal in all 50 states, even though states like Oregon, California, Hawaii are raising that age to 21, which I disagree with, of course, but they're tolerated. They still exist. They're still for sale in stores all over the country. I wouldn't have such a problem with it if I didn't see pharmaceutical ads on TV night after night after night, where half of the ad is a list of disclaimers of the side effects. If I didn't have to watch ad after ad for the pill that helps you from the pill, right? Like, you've got depression and your antidepressant isn't working for you. Add Abilify. Take another pill. Take this pill to help your pill. You have, I love this new one, OIC. Opioid-induced constipation. My doctor asked me, how long you been holding that in? You seen that commercial? Opioid-induced constipation. Because we gave you this one pill, now you're all stopped up. Here, take another pill to deal with that. Well, of course, if your job is selling pills or selling the permission to use those pills, this is a system that benefits you greatly. But how about instead of stopping up their bowels with an opiate, we give them some cannabis instead? Now they don't have to take the pill for the shits. How about instead of giving them the antidepressant that doesn't seem to be really working, we give them some cannabis and see how that works? And this is not to say cannabis is going to replace every antidepressant out there. Some people have some serious imbalances and stuff. But why is it not the medicine of first resort? Why is it not the first thing we try? It's just, that's the problem I have. This separate but equal doctrine, this discrimination, this apartheid based on drug use. That if you're employed, if you follow the dominant paradigm's rule of, getting a straight job in a cubicle or on the construction site or whatever, and you take the societally approved drugs that the doctor writes a prescription for or that are alcohol or tobacco, then you're fine. But we can't allow you to make your own decisions about using cannabis instead. Why? That would lead to social chaos. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Hey, thanks to Matt Ferner. I just picked him up in my Twitter feed. And Wiz Khalico for bringing attention to that as well. That story about Rainey, the guy that got boiled to death, we're talking about that. Matt Ferner's done some great investigative work on that. He was serving time on cocaine possession charges. Possession, folks. Boiled to death over possession. We're back with the closing segment.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Get your tickets now for the Oregon Marijuana Business Conference, happening one day only in Eugene, Oregon on Friday, April 28th. You'll learn all about the latest OLCC regulations for adult use cannabis, including testing requirements, tech and branding, taxes and distribution, and the latest developments in medical marijuana regulations. OMBC features networking with Oregon's leading experts in marijuana, including State Senator Floyd Przansky. You'll also get to hear from author, actor, and punk rock icon Henry Rollins delivering the keynote address. Early bird pricing is available for conference-only and VIP passes, which get you access to the VIP networking events featuring Henry Rollins and other speakers. It's the 2017 Oregon Marijuana Business Conference. Tickets available now at OregonMBC.com. That's OregonMBC.com before April 14th to get your early bird pricing. OregonMBC.com.
The Russ Belville Show. We're as much like Cheech and Chong as ordinary Americans are like the Three Stooges. Hey, Mo! Warning. Hits taken on this show are larger than they appear. Do not try this at home. These people are professionals. Or at least they pay me to say that.
You're a loony.
A public service message from the Russ Belville Show. and Blue Blasten Gergen, Pfaffen der Blasten, Schnurb Norben. You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Welcome back, everyone. 45 after the hour, and I can deliver some news about the future. I just got a confirmation. The flight is booked, so I can say it now. I'll be headed to Phoenix, Arizona, April 7th, 8th, and 9th. Actually, April 6th and 7th, I'll be in Phoenix. April 8th, I'll be in Denver. Looks like I'm laying over in Denver for the night. That's interesting. Okay. I think someone didn't think that through. And then the next morning, flying back to Portland. So if you want to meet up in the Phoenix area, I will be there in 2 weekends away. And what I'm doing there is I will be filming the anchor position for a show on finances and investment, or actually data analysis by New Frontier Data. So that'll be fun, getting back into the TV gig. So we'll keep you posted. Just follow Radical Russ on Twitter, and we'll let you know when all of that happens. Yeah, that's weird. They got me staying the night in Denver. I wonder what they're thinking. All right. As we wind things up today, I've got to call it off a little early today just because we've got some guests here at the Airbnb, and you may have heard the doorbell ringing earlier. That was part of that. And we're going to make sure this doesn't happen too often, but I've just got the thing started, and I've got some things I've got to attend to, unfortunately. So I do have to call things off just a little bit early tonight, about, 15 minutes. I hope you can forgive me. So my apologies as we wrap things up here from Delta 9 Studios. I'm Radical Russ. Appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for joining us. And next week, I promise, more details on the future of the Russ Belville Show. Big things happening starting May 1st. I can give you that tease. All right. That's all the time we got for today. More news and interviews tomorrow. And, oh, yes. Okay. So, yeah, we'll be back tomorrow with more news and interviews you can use for the cannabis community. I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it.